Garrett Nussmeier, LSU's next top 5 selected quarterback, or turnover-prone machine? We'll break down what we saw on film next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He's the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with those LSU Tigers. Guys, thank you as always for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout for being our everydayers. Garrett Nussmeier. Guys, it's time to break down his game heading into the 2025 college football season. Is week 0. So we're going to talk about his strengths, his concerns, explain the grade that we have for him, and what are the expectations heading into this 2025 college football season. But before we get into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Strengths, Keith. A guy that I believe he was top 3 for both of us when we did our top 10 rankings.
Yep.
He might have been. I think he's my QB. Is he my QB 2 right now? Yeah, he is. I think he's my QB.
He's my QB 2 too. Yep.
So okay. So yeah, 6. Well, he's like still at 6'2", 200 pounds and everything. And when you look at, I think he's been on the bench. He sat on the bench for like 3 years at LSU and finally got his opportunity to start. Sat behind Jake Daniels for 2 seasons. Then he's the guy in 2024. And he had a strong season, over 4,000 yards passing, 29 passing touchdowns and everything, completed 64% complete of his passes. Keith, when you look at the strengths of Garrett Nussmeier, why is he so high on your list? What are the strengths that really translate to the league?
Yeah, man, this guy's a pure thrower of the football. There's nowhere on the field that he can't access with his arm. And not only that, just talking about arm strength, but on here, we like to talk about arm talent. And, some of our listeners who haven't heard us describe this, right, there's a difference. Arm strength is just your ability just to throw the football far. Arm talent is the guys that you see fit the ball in the quote-unquote proverbial bucket, right, that are able to fit it over the underneath defender, but then drop it in right in front of the defender that's over top. And Garrett Nussmeier has shown to be able to do that. You're talking about a back shoulder throw. You're talking about a pylon guy. You're talking about, just a guy that understands just throwing the football, right? Like he's a naturally skilled and talented guy. So you draft him and you say, you know what? There's probably nowhere we can't ask him, or nothing we can't ask him to do, right? And we talked about it on the last podcast with K. Klubnik. Is he an opposite hash guy? I believe he is. So the arm talent to me is really good. Processing. For the most part, he's a pretty good processor, right? Getting through his progressions, he'd be another guy that'll enter the NFL with a good amount of experience. This will be his second complete year. You're talking about his young man, his father is the offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints. He's played Texas high school football at a really high level. He sat down for 3 years, like you talked about, right? And really learned it in the land of the transfer portal, NIL. You're not going to find too many young men that's going to sit down for 3 years, especially with his talent. So in his first year, he throws for 29 touchdowns. And you say, and you look at the front half of that season, right? I think there was a 6-touchdown game against Nicholls State, but there was a lot of 2 and 3 touchdown games too, to where he played really good football at the the very beginning of the season. So with Nussmeier, I think it's the throwing the football, it's the mental part, and to complete the trifecta. He's a mobile quarterback, right? Like I'm not going to call him a high-end athlete, but he has enough to escape pressure. We talked about this guy already, right? But like Tony Romo-esque, right? A pretty decent athlete. Tony Romo, the Jay Cutlers, right? To where those guys, they're surprisingly more athletic than what you think they are, but don't expect them to be high-end athletes. Yeah. But if it's one of those situations where, you see it, and we'll see it these Sundays, right? Where they'll draw it up. It's third and 9. The defense wants to play man. All the defenders back turn towards their, to the guys that they're defending. And then the quarterback escapes for 10, 12 yards. He has that type of athleticism to him to escape pressure, but also to pick up yardage.
Yeah, I think, for me, Keith, when I look at his strengths, that blend of accuracy and ball placement is like tops in college football. He's one
Yeah.
of the more accurate throwers of the football. And then you talked about just kind of accessing every blade of grass in a sense. And I love the touch he puts on passes. Like that's like you said, the arm talent, understanding when to try and fire it in and rocket it in, and when to let's put some air, let's get some arc underneath this throw and drop it in that bucket. The slot fades are there. And then, of course, like, a guy that I really like, we'll see how the NFL views him, but the slot receiver, Aaron Anderson, he's like 5'8".
Yeah.
To throw to a smaller receiver, you have to be accurate. You can't be high. You know what I mean? You got to
Not a
throw
large catch radius.
Not a large catch radius, especially working the slot. You typically work across the middle of the field, things like that. You got to put that ball either on the numbers or out in front of them, where you can lead them to daylight. He does those things very well. But I love his anticipatory throws, where he's comfortable in the pocket and he just gets it out early. Like he sees it, and for a guy, and typically you don't really see guys anticipate that well in their first year as a starter. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he got the practice reps over the last 3 years, all that type of stuff, but he's not played football. Like he's not been playing like a high amounts of football at LSU. He's just been kind of behind a Heisman candidate. Did Jaden win the Heisman that year? He did. Did he?
Yeah.
Heisman candidate, number 2 overall pick. There's a reason why he was sitting down. But the point is, like, you weren't getting the PT, you weren't getting the time on task, and to come out and still be as accurate and pinpoint with the football when he's in rhythm, and like when he gets into a zone. Oh yeah, this is one of those dudes you have to pressure, because if he gets to sit back there, it's lights out for you.
Yeah, he's gonna slice and dice you up. Yep.
Slice and dice you, man. And I think that's where it's kind of that, that archetype of like pocket passers that thrive within structure, thrive with timing. Like you don't see, he's not late a lot with his throws and things like that. So I really love that about his game. The release, snappy.
Yeah, I'll say this too, DP. I like the fact that he's a gunslinger. I like that. Like and there's variations of it, right? And obviously we'll talk about the other side of a gunslinger and how that could potentially get you in trouble. But I think in certain elements, and I know it's so big on turnovers, right? But there's some quarterbacks that are just capped, right? And I have to be honest. If I have to go into a football game with let's say Jameis Winston from 2-3 years ago or Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm taking Jameis Winston, right? Because I know that there's a certain threshold that offensively Jimmy can't get me to, that Daniel Jones can't get me to, right? Like if you had to tell me I have to walk into the game and I'm for sure telling you that the other team scored 30 points, I don't feel good about Daniel Jones or Jimmy Garoppolo getting me to 30, right? Jameis Winston, I'm gonna be like, you know what? We got a shot, right?
We got a shot.
Something might work out. We got a shot, right? And it may go all bad, but the fact that he's willing to take a couple chances, that's almost what's needed, right? Like in quarterbacks talk about this all the time. Sometimes you let it out your arm and you're not completely sure how it's going to turn out. And that goes to the 50-50 balls, right? You've seen him give his wide receivers a chance with 50-50 balls. Some quarterbacks don't give their guys that opportunity because they're too kind of protective of the football, right? Like they're too worried about like, hey, if I throw an interception. So I actually like the fact that he's a gunslinger.
Yeah, I do too. I think he's an aggressive thrower. Yep. He doesn't mind. And I'd rather have a guy that is aggressive that I can kind of wean down and calm down. Like, hey, let's take. I don't like, I love that about Cam Ward. There wasn't a throw that he felt like he couldn't make. Now it's just all about being calculated when you take the risk, and that's a coaching thing. Getting that player to understand when to make those risky throws and when not to make those risky throws. Right? Like Brett Favre is I think he's led the NFL in like career interceptions.
Yeah.
Well, that's because his decision making wasn't the best.
Was honestly, it's funny you brought him up because literally that's what I was thinking in my head, like as a potential comp, just because of the size too. Like I was thinking about Brett Favre. Like those guys gonna get back there. They got all the confidence in the world and they're gonna let it go.
And he's tough too. That's what I like about Nuss as well.
Yeah,
he's a tough player. So I just look at him, man, from mechanics, the snappy release, the the way he moved. I love his pocket mobility and movement to find throwing lanes. Like it's very pro quarterback-esque. So this is a guy that has all the first round potential and everything. And now we got to get into the things that he's got to clean up.
Yeah, let's talk about it, DP. We're going to talk about the concerns, man. We talked about highlighting the strengths, right? The throwing the football, the accuracy, ball placement, pocket mobility. Let's talk about the things that concern us because as talented as he is, he's not QB1 for both of us. He's QB2. So let's talk about the concerns coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who love and live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your shot for MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. And you could be like me. Crown your champion in August. That's what I did. I am crowning the Baltimore Ravens to finally get over the hump in the AFC and win the Super Bowl for this season. So to get in on the action, visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. Why? Because Futures Day is one day and one day only. So FanDuel, play your game. The concerns or the negative things when you're talking about the profile that is of Garrett Nussmeier, Keith, I go right to, we kind of talked about it, but it's the ball security. The turnover-worthy plays. Like, he's got that gunslinger in him, so you expect the turnover-worthy plays to be there. And it's all about taking calculated risks. Same thing with Cam Moore. Like, being diligent to stay true to yourself, but don't hurt your team with a turnover. And I think that's my biggest thing. That South Carolina game, well, he had like 2 potential pick sixes that were called back in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, he threw 12 total interceptions, but if those penalties don't happen, I think one of them was a really egregious penalty that no one felt like should have been a flag. And it was like, man, that could have changed the game. You know what I mean? And it's like, I want to see him get better with protecting the football. And not just from clean pockets, but also against pressure. Like, his numbers decreased drastically when he was pressured. Like, his completion percentage dropped to around 50% completion, even 5 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. Like, handle that just a little bit better and play with a little bit more poise in that situation. He's a tough kid, but I feel like that gunslinger mentality on top of when he's pressured, then you get errant throws, errant reads. And then I think that's, again, a situation which to me is like time on task. Like, the more he plays and more he sees, the better I think he'll be with it. And that goes to my last point, is the eye manipulation. One thing I want to see him improve on this year is looking off those defenders down the field. Hold that safety in the middle of the field and then go to the slot fade. Like, hold that safety backside so you can hit that skinny post on the play side hash. Like, if he starts adding that manipulation part to his game with his eyes and being able to control defenders, because we know certain defenders are so aggressive, they read the QB's eyes and just go wherever the QB's eyes are. And if you use that to your advantage, you can move guys out of the throwing lane in the heartbeat. So I think those are the things I want to see him really improve on heading into the 2025 season.
Yeah, so I was calculating a couple numbers, DP, and I listen. I did a little math, right? I did some. So first half of the season, DP, and we're talking about teams. You're talking about protections and just not threats to your offensive line, right? You're talking about playing South Alabama, UCLA, Nicholls State, USC, things like that. I think of the 29 touchdowns, DP, he threw 18 of them in the first half of the season, right? And only in 6 interceptions. The back half was, I believe, 11 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. But the back half of the schedule was Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Alabama, Florida, right? And so that kind of goes to your point of which teams are better in the trenches. Is the back half of the schedule, right? And so he has to understand how to start dealing with pressure and finding pressure answers, right? Like, what's my answer when I get pressure? The game I go to that I think kind of kicked everything off as far as the questioning a little bit of himself was the Texas A&M game. And we know Texas A&M, they may not have a quarterback, may not have wide receivers. One thing they're going to have is a good defensive line, right? Like, if they don't have nothing else, they're going to have some NFL prospects at the defensive line. And quite frankly, they gave both Will Campbell and Emory Jones trouble, right? And so with them not being able to protect, you seeing Garrett Nussmeier kind of make some erratic, sporadic decisions with the football. So I think that Nuss has to find an answer. The concern for me too, also with dealing with the pressure and finding an answer, is Nuss is a very tough young man, right? And you see that in the way he plays football. He's a very gritty guy. He's Joe Burrow had that moment against UCF where the guy kind of hit him and then, knocked his helmet off and stuff like that, and it became an iconic moment. I see that in Nuss too. Well, he has that kind of like, even if I'm knocked out, I'm gonna find a way to get up, right? And Nuss has that type of toughness, but the frame, I think, may concern some NFL teams because he's not a very big guy, right? I think he listed at 6'2", 210 pounds. Yeah, that's and so you're talking about potentially 6'1", 208 or something like that, right? And so I think teams just overall, right? Because we know that some teams, and we've seen smaller quarterbacks into the NFL, the Bryce Young, the Kyler Murrays, right? But most teams still have that kind of height, weight threshold of okay, if you're not 6'3" and a quarter, we don't know if we're willing to draft you that high. So I think that's another concern about Nuss, is that how will he be able to do that? And I think Brock Purdy had a comment, and it's very interesting, right? I don't know what podcast he was on. I believe it was Brock Purdy. He was mentioning that like 40% of his throws, I think that was the number, that he doesn't even see where the ball goes, right? Which is very interesting. And you're talking about the ultimate level of trust and anticipation, right? Like, you don't even see what's the outcome.
That's why he throws the spots, because he's like, listen, I'm gonna get it to. I see it's open. I'm gonna fire it in there. Yeah, and I just hope my receiver get there.
Yeah, and it's so funny that we identified that, right? Like, he just like, it's almost, and when you do that, right, your pre-snap identification has to be on target.
Has to be on point.
You better make sure you're right, because if you can't see and you just like, I think this cover 3 and I know my play, so I'm gonna just put it over there, right? So very, very interesting approach to it. But yeah, with Nuss, I think that's the two major concerns. I'm with you, the turnovers, and then you look at the kind of the body profile to be like, what an NFL team is going to say about that.
Yeah, and I think you in the opening you talked about how his athleticism and how he's got that sneaky athleticism. I want to see him utilize that to combat some of that pressure, right? Like, I love his pocket mobility, how he moves in the pocket, slides, shuffles, resets his feet, and fire the ball. But use some of that athleticism and get out the pocket. It's the same thing that I would get on Shador about. Like, Shador, no, you're not Lamar Jackson, but you're no slouch. Like, you could use your legs, and we saw that in the preseason game where he scrambled a couple times.
Yeah, you got to escape forward too, right? Like that. I think that's the other part. And it's the same thing for Nuss, same thing for Shador, right? You see those guys escape backwards. You got to start finding a way to be able to climb the pocket and escape forward, so that way, at the end of the day, you pick up 2-3 yards, right? Like, and you 2nd and 7, and you're still on task. But
you never go broke taking a profit.
Yeah, never go broke taking a profit. I like that. And then you go backwards, though, you're definitely going broke, and you definitely took a loss, right? You get sacked. Now it's 2nd and 21. That drive is over. Like, so that whole entire drive is done.
100%. I think it's going to be interesting to just see the development with him. Like I said, guys, he was a first-year starter. Last year was his first year playing football for LSU and starting for a full season. So we have expectations. We want to see things increase. And the things we talked about, right? The eye manipulation, the turnovers, the gunsling, those things can be coached correctly coached into a player and just correct it overall. It's not like something where you can't do it. It's just more so, hey, let's put more priority on this specific aspect of your game and improving it. And those are things that can be corrected.
Yep, I agree. I want to ask you this, DP, when we talk about putting everything on someone's shoulders. I just thought about this. You put Nussmeier on Clemson. Do you have almost without a doubt their title favorites? Because that's how I feel. Like, if what Nuss does and he's on Clemson, I almost put it like without a doubt they should be the favorites. Just because I believe in what Nuss put on tape. Yeah. And he's been in position to have to carry a team, right? Like that the LSU defense over the past few years has not been the traditional LSU defense we know from the years in the past. So just like Jaden Daniels, he kind of had to put that team on his back and make plays consistently and outscore teams.
No, yeah, I definitely think if he's there and he's on Clemson with all the receiving talent they have, the O-line that they have, the scheme in itself. Yeah, they definitely are probably the leading top favorites consensus. Like they're my top favorite right now, but like consensus wise, I think they would be the favorites over a lot of the other teams in the country right now.
Yeah, well, DP, let's do this, man. We're going to wrap up this show with what? Our draft grades. Yes, we're heading into the season with our early draft grades on Garrett Nussmeier. We're going to talk about that and the 2025 expectations.
Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group of friends and family to come with you. Game Time makes it all possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Guys, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydayers. Garrett Nussmeier, let's explain the grade. I have a mid-first round grade on him like that. Similar, he's actually a little bit higher than Cade right now. He's my QB2. So he's actually in that top 12 to 10 range right now. And I think for him, it's just the accuracy, the professionalism that you see in the pocket mobility, finding throwing lanes, the ball placement, anticipation, the things that translate. Like if anything translates to the league, it's those things.
Yep.
Those things are must-haves in the NFL and everything. And I look at him as being the guy that you can tie to a franchise. I think you talked about the size he's going to throw. Some teams he's not going to fit their mold at quarterback. They're going to want somebody 6'3", 6'4". He may not check that box.
Yep.
But if you want somebody that can play from the pocket, win from the pocket, throw accurately, get the ball and feed your weapons and carry your passing attack, yeah, that is Garrett Nussmeier. So he's my QB2. I got like I said, top 12 to 10 grade on him right now. He wasn't in my top 10 players list, but a top 12 to 10 grade. I think this is a guy that's going to be a first round pick after this season. And now it's all about the expectations. And I think for me, keep the expectations simple. I want to see him correct some of those things we talked about just a moment ago. And really, he threw for over 4,000 yards last year with these problems. What can you do if you clean some of this up? If you change some of those turnover-worthy plays into, accurate, good decision-making, and, he threw, 29 touchdowns last year?
Yep.
Yeah, I think he can get the 35, 40 passing touchdowns, especially with the receivers that he has this year at LSU, right? Now it's going to be the pocket mobility, the escaping pressure, beating pressure is going to be a big thing because, losing Emory Jones, Will Campbell on that offensive line.
Yeah.
Those are two big losses, right? And they start the week. I mean, it's not the week. They start the season now on the road at night. And I don't know who scheduled this, but they put them at night in Clemson. That's a tough place to play at nighttime. You get the crowd rocking. They've been stewing and brewing all day. I'm from here. I can promise you they're all going to be drunk because they're going to be.
I was just about to say, DP, what the stewing and brewing, man? What is stewing and brewing?
They are going to be intoxicated, ready to go by the time 7:30 kickoff happens. You got them running out first game of the season, touching the rock, hitting. You'll see Dabo with that sprint that makes everybody nervous at his age, hitting that sprint down the hill. So, yeah, that's going to be a tough place. Peter Woods, TJ Parker, and those guys. But that's an opportunity for him in terms of Garrett Nussmeier to stamp himself. You go out there and knock off Clemson at home. You do what you have to do in the pocket and play a great game. It's sky's the limit after that.
Yeah. So there's another one where we match and kind of grades is that I have him as a first round grade also. I have him as a mid first round guy. So higher than what I had than Cade Klubnik. And for reasons I think that's his on film, right? Like I've just seen arm talent wise, Garrett Nussmeier do more often, right? Again, and we talked about putting the team on his back and the expectations for me, DP. I was a little hesitant with Cade on the last podcast, but with Garrett, I'm willing to say I think it's Heisman. I think he has that potential because what his mentality is, right? Like he's going to get his points, right? Like he's a shooter.
Yeah.
He's gonna get his buckets, and then also when you add that wide receiver core around him, and we talk about this may be the fastest. This team may be able to run track for real. Right?
Yeah.
Because they have some burners on this team. And you talk about Nick Anderson, Aaron Anderson, you talk about Chris Hilton, the speedy young man. You talk about them transferring Barry and Brown. I believe they have a true freshman in there. Like I've talked to a couple of my guys over there, and they're like, listen, we could go 8 deep, right? Like we have 8 starting wide receivers on our team right now. And I said, okay, that's dangerous, right? Like that you go 5 wide, that's a problem for a lot of teams. But I do agree with you, DP. The only hiccup, and this is the part everybody gets attracted to the highlight stuff, but you mentioned it, the trenches, right?
Yeah.
Losing the number 1 overall, top 5 pick in Will Campbell, number 1 offensive tackle. Yeah, and then you lose Emory Jones, who I believe he's gonna be a Pro Bowler in Baltimore. Perfect spot for him. You lose those 2 guys at bookend tackles, and then you're going against a team like Clemson to start the season. Hopefully they don't potentially expose something that's the issue up front early on. So I'm right there. Like Garrett Nussmeier, first round grade, Heisman expectations. I love the arm talent. I want him to reduce the turnovers. And then in those big moments, and I'm talking about I have to pull up their schedule, but you get an Alabama, you get, obviously Clemson early on.
Yeah.
You get an Ole Miss, Florida, teams like that you show up and play well. And I get it. And I always say this. I know you're not going to throw for 5 touchdowns and 350 yards. But come show up, give me 2-3 touchdowns. I'll take an interception and 250 yards. Something like have a highly efficient game.
Yeah, I'm looking at their schedule right now. Of course, they start, 15 days from now, guys. August 30th, they go to Clemson. That night game, they get Louisiana Tech at home. They get Florida at home. They get Southeastern Louisiana at home. Then they go on the road to face Ole Miss. South Carolina comes in to Baton Rouge. They go to face Vanderbilt in Nashville. Texas A&M comes to Louisiana. They go on the road. It looks like it's going to be a night kickoff game to Alabama. They have Arkansas come into to Baton Rouge. Western Kentucky comes into Baton Rouge, and they close the season out going to Oklahoma against Brent Venables, John Mateer, and that Oklahoma Sooner team that we expect to be a much more improved team than what we've seen over the last couple years of Brent Venables' tenure there. So, yeah, they have a nice little schedule there, but look, they do have some games at home against some tough opponents where it's what? We're at the crib.
Yep, I agree 100%. With DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast all by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listen is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Coming up on tomorrow's show, guys, we're going to talk about Drew Allar. Same way. Strengths, concerns, explain the grade and the 2025 expectations for the senior. This is his last hurrah. Can he get it done? Can he take his game to the next level? We'll break it all down on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.